Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing The Husbands by Holly, I believe it's Gramazio. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and probably finish off with that for the week. I'm not sure what I'll be reviewing for next time. Holly Gramazio is a debut author. This is her first novel. On her website, it lists that she is a game designer and curator living in, I believe, London. And this is a really interesting idea for a novel. It is about a woman named Lauren who's in her late 20s, early 30s. She lives in London and she comes home from what we would call in the States a bachelorette party. And she finds a strange man in her house and she comes to realize that this man is now her husband. And she has a portal essentially in her attic that produces husbands one at a time, but basically the way that the kind of concept of the story works is that um, someone goes up, one of the husbands goes up into the attic, he comes back down, and it's a completely different world than the one than the one before, and kind of her whole timeline is kind of scrambled up to that point. It was a really interesting idea for a novel. I felt the novel to be very, very charming, and I thought it was very, very funny. It's a very English sense of humor, kind of dry, understated sense of humor, but I like that quite a bit. I think Holly does a good job of giving you kind of these different, almost like adventures in this woman's life as she's kind of trying to ultimately decide on what I think the book is kind of a metaphor for is how do you decide when it's time to get married and who to get married to. And this character, Lauren, does that. There's some side characters, um, maybe a little bit less developed than I would like her sister and one of her friends, Elena, whose bachelorette party kind of kicks off the novel. There's some downstairs neighbors. There's a couple of other main characters who kind of come in throughout the book. But that's kind of the to me the fun of the book was kind of this character trying to work through kind of what bothers her, what annoys her, what's acceptable, what's not. When do you know? Because as the characters kind of keep as the husbands kind of pile up, um, she doesn't know when to stop. When is this person good enough to spend the rest of her life with? Um, and the the kind of issue is that time doesn't stop in the world just because the husbands reset the world. So time still marches on, and the book takes place over roughly like a year, year and a half of her kind of going through these experiments. It's almost a magical realism, and I think it really, really was. I was very entertained by it. Um, if there are some downsides or some negative things about it, it does, like I said, feel kind of episodic, and there's not really a huge sweeping arc to the book. It kind of takes a while to figure out exactly what is kind of the point. And I think that one of the reasons that it is that is because there's not really an opening chapter with this character where you kind of understand who she is, what she values, what she cares about, what she wants. Um, she works, I think, in the beginning of the novel as like a city council person, and so it's not quite clear like what motivates her and drives her and what makes her happy. And I think part of that is because the author wants to kind of play around with this idea of is your happiness internal to you or is it based on kind of who you're around and who you're your partner to. And she plays around with that a little bit, but I would have liked maybe a chapter with the main character just to kind of ground her in kind of a single point to kind of answer some of those questions. um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I found to be. It's a very quick read. I read it in a few days. I thought it was pretty breezy. I think there maybe could have been a chapter or two that are trimmed. Some of the episodes go on a little bit longer than others. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it kind of the ending makes sense to the book. I think it's well done. I think it's kind of a logical conclusion to the story. I don't know how much I'm gonna think about the book and the things that are within it. Um, After a week or two, it's not really super like serious and dour. It's pretty fun read. If you're looking for something serious, this probably is not going to be the book for you. I was surprised the Goodreads reviews aren't as strong. I didn't go through them and read them. I think it was like a 3 or 3.5. I enjoyed this a lot. I could see people who maybe are put off by the magical realism type concept of the book. If that bothers you, then maybe that's something that may put you off. Like I said, some of the side characters I think could have been drawn out a little bit more. There's some adventures that she goes on that are maybe maybe too wacky or zany for some people, though I still felt they're kind of realistic enough for for the scenarios that she put out. So overall, I really enjoyed it. If you're someone who doesn't have a problem with kind of high concept or magical realist stuff, then I think you'd enjoy it. It's comedy. I found it to be funny. Humor is very subjective, but if you kind of like dry English humor, I think you're gonna like this. Like I said, I think underneath kind of the zaniness, I think there's legitimate questions that people ask themselves, and I think that the main character asks herself this. I wish that, like I said, maybe there'd been a little bit more foundation laid about this particular main character and what she cares about before the novel starts to give it maybe a little bit more of an arc. But I didn't really mind that when I was reading it. It's a quick read, and I thought it was a very strong debut. The husbands, Holly Gramazio. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm trying to think of what I don't read a ton of comedic novels, and so I don't have a ton of stuff to point to. The last thing I read that I think was like purposely comedic was Big Guns way back in the day, which is a satirical novel, so it's not really even this kind of a similar humor. Um, yeah, I'm interested to see what other people's reaction to it was. I saw it on the list for the NPR Best Books of the Year, and that's why I picked it up, and I really enjoyed it. Trying to think if there's anything else that is worthy of talking about in terms of the book. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for something that's like thought provoking and really like heavy, this is not the book for you. It's pretty light and breezy, and so if that sounds fun, then I think you'd enjoy it. If you're someone who likes romantic comedies, if you're someone who likes humor with it, if you can handle kind of this idea of kind of speculative fiction, some people can't and really want those things completely separate. I understand that, but it doesn't bother me. So teach his or her own. So till next time, bye.